Hello Mech Warriors, and welcome back to Goofy Mechs, the series where we take a look at some of the dumbest art in Battletech, and then have a look at the tabletop statistics to see if that mech should be judged by its looks, or if it is actually decent to run on the tabletop. Today we're looking at the Arctic Fox, which is one of the weirdest mech designs I've ever seen. So the lore behind this is that it was made late in the clan invasion as an omni-mech inspired by the Kit Fox / Uller. But what it ends up looking like is the Kit Fox and the Black Hawk had a child and it inherited all of their worst traits. This is the Nova or Black Hawk, and you can see that the shoulder joints come directly out of the hips of the legs, and the Arctic Fox has inherited this very strange and dumb looking trait as well. I don't understand why one would do this. You should have a hip assembly at the bottom of the mech, somewhere around here, the waist area, and then a separate shoulder assembly. Like, I can't even imagine the increased complexity required to have a shoulder joint working inside of a hip joint of the legs. I always thought it looked really dumb on the Nova, and I think it looks just as dumb here. Although, I guess I prefer the ball joint here that makes it look like you can actually lift the arms out to the side and rotate them, as opposed to this design, which I'm pretty sure exclusively bends at the elbows to aim the gun out to the left and right. But can anyone tell me what's going on with these weird reverse digitigrade legs? How is this thing standing up? I guess the mech just has such an incredibly massive, heavy cockpit and huge, bulky forearms that it can have these knees be facing what I would say is probably the wrong way. Like, most of the time when you have digitigrade legs, the joint is the opposite way of the way it's set up here. Not really sure. Maybe an engineer can tell me why this looks wrong to me. Of course, as usual, we have the panels all over the place. Even when they paint a design onto a part of the mech, they still feel the need to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels on the little lower jaw area here, if you want to call it that. I am a fan of the Charlie Brown t-shirt shark teeth setup here. I think that it looks cool. It looks intimidating. There's a reason why they put this on planes during World War II. It just looks super rad. But I mean, we've got little vents or something here and underneath there and on the sides of the legs and over here underneath this area. This is obviously some kind of vent, which is probably not a great placement for it because it's a big flat surface on the front of the mech. It's going to get smashed with an AC-20 round or something like that pretty easily. I do like the little shin guards here. I think that this is a good addition, but I feel like it could maybe be a little bit bigger and actually cover the knee joint from getting shot. I think that would probably be a design improvement. It might look a little bit better, a little bit more practical, but I'm not sure exactly how these legs are moving, so maybe it would get in the way when this bends upwards. I'm really not sure how this thing is supposed to run. These legs just look so incredibly wrong. I kind of love how it has these useless little prong hands that don't even stick out as far as the gun barrels, meaning that they really probably can't pick anything up with them, unless maybe this extends further out. I will say, unlike a lot of mech designs, it doesn't have ginormous feet, which is a point in its favor, but what's going on here? There's like a little dent in the foot right here and right there. I don't know why it's dented in like that. Is that intentional or is that an artist mistake? I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. Also, is it just me or does it seem like these arms shouldn't be able to hang straight down like this with the way that the ball joint comes out? Unless maybe they're more like an oval instead of circular, but they definitely are drawn to look fairly circular here. I feel like they should be jutting out like a gym bro that can no longer put their arms down fully because their lats are so massive. Alright, enough quibbles about the design. Let's look at the stats here. The Arctic Fox is inspired by the Kit Fox. It's also a 30-ton mech. It also goes 6'9", also has an XL engine. But unlike the Kit Fox, the Arctic Fox dedicates a little bit of extra tonnage to armor, which means that it's actually quite well armored. This unit is a pretty good replacement for a fire starter in your Inner Sphere Lance. 15 armor on the CT and 10 everywhere else except the torsos, which have 11, means that it can take some decent punishment before going down, and because it's such a small mech, only 30 tons, I don't have as big of a problem with the XL engine as I do with, say, a Thunderbolt with an XL engine or a Black Knight. The rear armor is a little bit thin here, but this is actually as much armor as you can fit on the torsos, so unfortunately that's just kind of gotta be the way it is. For the OG AF1 Arctic Fox, we've got two SRM4s Force and 2 medium lasers as our close range complement, and then racket firing at that long range, we have the ERPPC. Combined with a decent 9 hex running speed, we've got a decent skirmisher here who can wear down enemies at range and then dash in to crit out internal components with the SRM Force. It has sufficient heat sinking for its needs. Basically, you choose between the ERPPC and the close range complement. You can pretty much fire like 1 medium laser alongside the ERPPC at that medium range, and maybe throw in another weapon and then cool down by firing all of the close range weapons. Only 12 heat here, so you got 14 when you're running, and you're gonna drop 6 heat. So you can get pretty hot by firing the long range ERPPC along with the closer range weapons, and then cool off by firing those close range weapons in tandem. Then we have the 1B and the 1D, which are very cheap on battle value. The OG is almost 1000 BV, but these are under 750, so these are really cheap. And LB-10X is a great flexible weapon, 2 tons of ammo for it, meaning that you can hit with that cluster or that slug shot to deal decent damage to either open up armor or crit out those internals, and 1 medium laser as backup. This mech does not make use of its 20 heat sinking, which is not fantastic, but it is very cheap, 735 BV, and a cheap mobile LB-10X is something that is to be feared. If you can get this around behind somebody when their rear armor is already stripped off, that LB-10X is going to do some really good damage. The Arctic Fox D variant is really good at raining some LRMs down on people with 2 LRM-10s with Artemis. For under 750 BV, this is some decent long-range fire capability, but it has no protection at short range, and honestly, 2 LRM-10s with Artemis isn't necessarily that scary, so this is a decent budget option, but honestly, I'd probably rather have the 1B. It has better flexibility overall. The U variant is designed for underwater combat with 5 UMUs, underwater movement units. It has a long-range torpedo with Artemis, which is an interesting choice, and then a light PPC. I really don't have a frame of reference for this, but it can move underwater, so I would say that this is a pretty cool little unit to use if you have need of such a mech on the cheap. And here's our last 4 variants, but I just want to talk about this mech for a moment. It doesn't really get mentioned very much, and I think that's because it's first introduced at the end of the clan invasion period, which is not necessarily a time that a lot of people play in, and I think that's a shame because there are a couple of very decent variants of this mech. Specifically, I want to talk about the 1A. I think that this mech is quite good. Under 860 battle value, solid armor, gets the jump jets, which is really nice, increased mobility, able to jump behind enemies and use a blistering array of pulse lasers to absolutely fry somebody. 4 medium pulse lasers and 3 small pulse lasers is no joke. This is a lot of firepower. It can jump and fire all of the medium pulse lasers without overheating at all, and can add in the 6 heat from the small pulse lasers and only go to 6 heat, which is nice. That's pretty good damage, and then you can pretty easily recover by either running or jumping away and only firing a couple of weapons. So if you're looking for a cheap, jumpy mech with lots of pulse lasers to hunt other light mechs and bully them, the A variant of the Arctic Fox is very good at that. And then we have the F variant, which dumps the jump jets, but gets 2 MML7s, which is great, flexible firepower. You can fire from long range, you can fire from short range with the LRM and SRM ammo included, and 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso give you good backup weapons for when you lose your arms. This mech does tend to run a little bit hot, so you're going to want to use those ER medium lasers once you get into like range 10 and mix them in with just one of the MML7s. But once you're at range 3 or a range further than 10, I'd probably swap over to the MMLs using the SRM and LRM ammo for those given ranges to get some extra punch. The 1C Arctic Fox can be pretty easily compared with the original Arctic Fox. You swap out 2 medium lasers and 2 SRM4s for a large pulse laser. So more accurate, much less damage overall, and slightly increased effective range. This weapon is less flexible and probably just overall not as good as the original. You've got around 20 damage on average from the close range weapons here as opposed to 10 damage from the large pulse laser. The only things that I would say about this that are good is it's a little bit cheaper. You save about 40 battle value, and it's all energy, so there's no ammo to crit out. I'd probably take the OG over the 1C pretty much every time, unless I'm really tight on battle value. Finally, we have the E variant, which is really weird and funky. We've got 4 light PPCs and 2 ER medium lasers, so lots of small hits 4 light PPCs is a great mid-range punch that you can bring to bear. It does run a little bit hot. You're going to be picking up that movement heat every time you fire, and there's not really much of a purpose in having these 2 ER medium lasers until you lose one of your arms, or if you're fighting at point blank range when you're in the minimum range of the PPCs. At 1094 battle value, this is a little bit too expensive. Nearly 1100 is quite pricey for a little mech like this. I'm probably going to recommend staying away from the E variant. So overall I would say here that the A variant is the best, very good little cheap pulse laser boat. Then the F variant is very nice and flexible, able to bring damage at pretty much all ranges pretty reliably. The B variant is nice just because it's super cheap, only 735 battle value for an LB-10X on legs that can kick you and has pretty decent overall armor. And the 1 is a decent bracket fire mech. It is pretty expensive because the cost of that ERPPC is so high in battle value. But if you're looking for a flexible skirmisher mech, the AF1 is not bad. Honestly, I might prefer a Dervish to this mech, although that is a lot more expensive. For something in the same battle value territory, I'd probably go with, say, a Whitworth 2 with the 2 LRM 10 Artemises. It's a lot slower, but it can bring a lot more long-range firepower to bear than a single ERPPC, although running this alongside a Whitworth might not be bad since it has a lot more close-range firepower. Let me know what you think of the Arctic Fox in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe. Helps the algorithm to push my content to more people. Check out some of my other mech review videos or some of the tactics videos in the Mech Lab playlist. Thank you so much for watching, Mech Warriors, and have a great day.